Good morning again. Dear friends, colleagues, it's my privilege to be with you this morning and to share some of my thoughts as an opening comments to this, I think, very important gathering here in Jerusalem. And I hope that we shall have together fruitful and meaningful and some excitement also days here in Jerusalem. I think that any one of us who is deeply involved in the processes of education about the Shoah, the Holocaust, knows that we can count on many achievements in the last few years. And I can count some of them, of course. I think that Bill is here. I saw him yesterday, and he records more than 250 all kinds of institutions, centers all over the world, many of them in the US, but not only. And I think that this is a very impressive number of centers who are dealing professionally and systematically with the education of the Holocaust. We're here almost or more than 80 representatives of these kind of centers from all corners of the world. I think that we have the turning point, from my point of view, on the political arena of the UN resolution in 2005, the UNESCO resolution in 2006, and of course the activities of the ITF that right now have more than 30 states, and we have some other states who are wishing and acting to be full members in the ITF, which is a meaningful achievement for mainly European, but not only European states, who wants to deal systematically and professionally with the remembrance and the education of the Holocaust and other issues who are related to the Holocaust. We have the decisions that state by state is taking to have those Memorial Days on the 27th of January or other national native Memorial Days to commemorate and to remember, and usually they are going with a set of educational activities. Of course, we have our activities here in Yad Vashem that we stated more than 70 seminars along the year, professional seminars of educators who are coming from all corners of the world, and we are training more than 1,400 professional educators. Many of them are here as partners, and we are doing the same, I think, activities along the way, and so on and so forth. The minister has left, but we have signed, Yad Vashem and the ministry, just recently, more than 20 formal, all kinds of agreements with all kinds of states around the world with regard to formalizing the activities of Holocaust teaching. So if this kind of a list that I'm just, going through is a very positive achievements that is a conclusion of the work of you and many others, and basically it's very positive. So what can we say and what would we say on this occasion? Is it good enough? And I'm afraid that alongside with the many achievements that we have to enhance and develop, there are still, as usually, some problems that brings some, I think, challenges that we educators and historians, and mainly historians, educators, have to meet. I think that the main issue, and I'm not going, as it was stated, I'm sorry, to analyze each of the, I think, achievement that we have to reach, and one by one, but I think that the main challenge is actually we are coming closer to, in my eyes, a major conjunction of the meetings of us, the second generation educators, with the third and the fourth generation. And here I think that the question is confronting us and if I'll use a sentence that was said constantly by Professor Israel Gutman, that says that the Holocaust, the Shoah, is still refusing to be an history or a chapter in history, and is still around us, hovering and troubling, and we have to cope with it in many aspects of our way of thinking, and it actually goes through any field of human activity. And as this is the phenomena, I think that the major challenge is to see how, within the coming years, we shall be in a situation that we shall have a good, I think, encounter with the members of the third generation. Would they be actually the followers of young people who understand the importance of the value, the stems from Holocaust learning, education, and dealing with this open question, how it could have happened? So this is the most important challenge that is ahead of us, and I think that any one of us is saying again, and we're doing a lot. Am I not going to elaborate about this issue, that we have to do it with actually fading out phenomena of the survivors. Still many are with us, and we have here in this hall some of our dear friends, survivors, who are sharing the story and doing a lot in their educational activities. But within the, I don't know, 10 years, we should be, I'm afraid, quite alone. And we're doing a lot to see how to tell the story. And at least we are very intensively documenting it. And if we should do it in an appropriate way, I'm not afraid that we can do and we can follow. What we should miss, basically, is their moral support. Their moral existence is a very, very, very important issue and the basis that stands behind our activities. But putting aside this kind of major or central issue that we have to confront, I think that somewhere around the horizon in the last few years is a new phenomena emerging from all corners of the scene. And this phenomena I will try to define very roughly and very shortly, taking a risk to doing some, I think, conclusions that are very rough. This is I would say, a trend to try and find broader, I think, explanation, interpretation to the context of the Shoah, of the Holocaust. And those interpretations wants to study the Shoah not only in the context of the 30s, the period between the First and the Second World War, and specifically the Second World War, but in a context of a much broader phenomena, the phenomena of a genocide. And I think it's genuinely done by scholars, researchers, who are actually deepening and widening the scope of their outreach to get a better understanding and to broaden their field of research, which is, to my point of view, very genuine, and I think it's a natural development in the field of research. And having said that, so what is the problem? The problem is that with this trend, actually, to present a broader context to the interpretation of the Holocaust as a part of the phenomenon of a genocide, we are bringing a question and a problem to the educators. Because I'm afraid that on the way, we are losing some of our former understanding that were developed along the way as a result of the accumulated research of the last 20, 30 years. And we, the educators, have found the ways that we achieved a more or less agreed I think, terms of how to define even the term of the Holocaust. What does it mean? The definition of the Holocaust. Where does it start? In the 30s, the Nazis coming to power, or only in the 40s, when the extreme mass murder has started in 41 and afterwards? To whom do we refer? Mainly to the Jews, other groups of victims, and so on and so forth. So I understand that by trying to bring a new pieces of research that are dealing very intensively in the field of genocide, actually, we have to confront a new reality, and we have to re-identify the new terms that we have to confront with. And I think that when I listen and read Professor Yehuda Bauer, who just have entered the room, I think that I find the way, as an educator, to actually direct my way and to know what is the definition and what I'm aiming at. And when the discourse and the outcome of the pieces of research with regard to the genocide studies come out, I think Professor Yehuda Bauer was one of the first scholars that tried to find a way that will support us, the educators, to actually combine the knowledge and this wider interpretation with the particular case of the Shoah of the Holocaust, by defining it as maybe the most extreme paradigmatic case of a genocide, which is well characterized and defined. But when I'm reading the very last piece of The Bloodlands of Timothy Snyder, and I'm reading, it's well written and very interesting, and everything is there, as if, allegedly. The waves of killings, of mass murders, of innocent human beings from the beginning of the 30s, 32, 33, till 45, from, if you want, Central Europe, eastern part of Germany to Moscow, waves of killings one by one, and the killings of the Jews, the mass murder of the Jews, is specified there very accurately, the numbers and the cases. And the Holocaust is mentioned in those pages and other pages, but at the end of the day, I couldn't find the Holocaust. I couldn't find the Holocaust as a phenomenon. I couldn't find the Holocaust and how to teach about it in a meaningful way that my students will find a way to say to themselves, this story is relevant to my values, to my life. I have to cope with the very central issue, how it could have happened. What were the reasons for that phenomena? And why I'm going to study about it as a young person. I wasn't there. Even my parents weren't there. So I have to find the way to tell this particular story. And I'm afraid because of this kind of confusion, we find a trend that might come to a kind of a fashion, that we are not dealing with the case itself, with the particular case of the Holocaust, but we are drifting away to kind of comparisons, trying even to equate one genocide to another, one mass murder to another. It's legitimate. Comparative study is very legitimate between academicians and the field of research. But we, educators, have to come a bit step afterwards with some conclusion of this process of comparative studies. And this is a problem for us. Because if we shall deal with the comparison and equation, if we do it rightly or not rightly, we are going to lose the essence of the story itself. And then, in many cases, we are jumping again, we are cut-shorting the way to the lessons of. And then, unfortunately, in many cases, we are telling or presenting the lesson very superficially. They are not based on real knowledge, real information. but done very superficially. And then we can slope a bit on this slippery, I think, slope to some slogans, which are not real processes of education. Those are some of the problems that we have to confront. I'm not standing here to tell you that this is a negative process. I'm standing here to tell you that we have a challenge here. We have a challenge that we have to confront. And I think that into this case, some political and all kinds of interests are intervening. So we have to get the knowledge and the question marks how we are going to deal with this particular case. Because I'm a great believer as an educator that the particular, and only the particular, brings to the universal. We cannot deal with slogans who are trying to take only the upper part of the story and to bring it to a state of a universal story with universal values. Only the very particular case. And this is not a case study, and we can remember even what have happened yesterday. Dorit has made the choice to tell a story, a long story, a very interesting story that she came across several weeks before, and everyone was touched. Even the minister who, you know, speaks as a minister, his responsibility to direct and I think to create the policy, started with a small story of a person that he knew and passed away several days ago, as you could hear. It's a very particular story that sheds some light about the universal story. And I'm a great believer of it, as an educator and as a literary reader. Think on any piece of good novel that you have read and we can share with. Do those pieces of universal value, deals with universal values and compare with them, or no? I can think in any good novel that I read and I can share with you, they are very detailed, particular story. When I was thinking about my few comments this morning, I finished or concluded reading of an American novel of Williams, Stoner. 3 weeks ago. I don't know how many, maybe the Americans, some others, have read this excellent, brilliant novel. Stoner is a lecturer, a teacher in a university in the state of Missouri, out of all states. In the state university, which is not a great university, as far as I know. I'm sorry if I have hurt someone. Yes. Sorry for it. But from what I've read in the book, at least, and when I read it, I saw it when I took it to my hand, and it was a bestseller in Israel. It was translated into Hebrew, I think 2 months ago or something like this, and it's in the list, the top bestsellers list for, I don't know, several months. And when I took it to my hand, I says, why is it so? Was it so unique in this of a small novel? Then the New York Times, and I don't know, the Directorate test, this is a unusual piece of literary writing. And I read it. I read, and I saw that this Mr. Stoner has a very, you know, ordinary way of life. And I'm not going to tell the story, but this kind of a person actually went from one stage to another, and at the end of the day, I think that he missed most of the stations of his life. He missed his parents, the relationship with his parents. He missed the relationship with his wife, with his daughter, with his granddaughter. And his career as a lecturer, a researcher in the university, was blocked, and he lost the new love that he had there, and he just passed away. And I'm afraid that this is a story of a person that has, you know, he was born in the image of God, and he wanted to fulfill his mission of life, and he's missed his boat of life. It's kind of a story of a person that missed something which is a very essential and in human life. And the way of writing, very direct, very simple, very lean way of style of writing. It's typical to Williams, seemingly so, but it comes to my heart and my mind because it's so particular, it's so detailed. The staircase of that building of the university, the city of Missouri at that time, Columbia, and so on and so forth. Very detailed. Nothing to do with great minds, great comparisons, but it's a great piece of novel because of the particular story that is there. And I will go with it. And when I concluded, I saw that it was written in '65. So why it revived after so many years later in so many languages? The only reason is that actually the particular story is the story who makes it universal. So I'm coming back to our case of teaching and studying. I think that maybe, and this is one of the axes, the ideas that we want to present, to confront, and to share, and to challenge ourselves together with you along the coming 2.5, 3 days. Should we rethink how we can come back to the core story of the Holocaust, of the Shoah, not neglecting the new attempts of interpretation of the Holocaust. And I can conclude and say that when I'm reading Saul Friedlander, Professor Bauer, or Kershaw, and many others, I'm not going to mention, I think that I can understand the essence of the story and the context and to present it to my students. And when I conclude and when I will be able to do it in a very human, meaningful way, I did my job. And then we can go a step forward to make all kinds of comparisons. So this is what I'm afraid will be one of the challenges in front of us, among many other challenges. And I'm suggesting to ourselves that we should confront this challenge and we should see how we can deal with it in a very, I think, meaningful way as educators. I hope that this issue and many other issues, which are challenges to us, will be confronted and analyzed along those coming days and afterwards. And I hope that it will be very fruitful and meaningful for all of us. Thank you so much, and all the best to you.